Well, welcome everyone to the spring celebrations hosted by the Multi-Faith and Spirituality Center at Concordia. This is an exciting time for us. Spring is a wonderful time when many religious traditions have very important holy days to celebrate. And one of our mandates and our goals is to share those traditions, learn from one another, and really hear and get an insight in how people practice those traditions, so that religion isn't just something we hear about in a textbook or in old movies, but that we actually get a sense for what those religions mean to our neighbors, to our friends, to our classmates and colleagues. So I'm really glad you've joined us. We are recording this, so others will watch it later. And as we start, I also want us to just take a moment and remember where we are in your beautiful spaces, at home probably. But I would also like us to recognize that we are actually on, we and most of us in Concordia is located on unceded indigenous lands. The Ganyengehaga Nation is recognized as the custodians and the land and the waters on which we gather today. Tiohtià:ke, Montreal, where many of you are probably located, I'm just on the outskirts of that, and it's historically known as a gathering place for many First Nations. Today, it's home to a diverse population of Indigenous and other peoples. We respect the continued connections with the past, present, and future in our ongoing relationship with Indigenous and other peoples within the Montreal community. And today, I really think it's very fitting that we have many different religious communities that gather and that we can learn from and exchange with. So here's what we're going to do. So we're having 5 speakers. Actually, we're still waiting for one, but we have different traditions, and each speaker has 10 minutes to share about their holy day that's happening. I know that's a challenge to put thousands of years of history and tradition into 10 minutes, and to also explain how the whole tradition or celebrates, because there are differences depending on what country you're in, what part of the world, or what, and often there's often much diversity within traditions. But here we are. We're hoping that this gives you a sense of the traditions. We'll ask the speakers to introduce their traditions in those 10 minutes. And I ask any one of you to write questions either in the chat or keep them for the conversation after. But I also, just as we begin, I just want to hear in the chat, just put in what's one thing about spring and spring celebrations you like particularly. Just write something in the chat as a way to get us going. Liveliness. Nobody has anything they look forward to. Okay. Rebirth. Here we go. I spoke too soon. Rebirth, long walks, renewal, return of the animals, flowers. Now it's going so fast I can barely keep up. Hope, warmer weather, yay. Beginnings. Those are all wonderful things. And so as we listen to our speakers, it'll be interesting to see how many of the various traditions incorporate some of those. Gathering with family and friends, yay. So our first speaker is Adriana Cabrera Cleves. She is the Baha'i liaison on our multi-faith network. And we're presenting the traditions according to the calendar as we celebrated them this year in 2021. So the first celebration we had was Nawruz, that's celebrated by many Persians and also the Baha'i community. So Adriana, tell us about Nawruz.
Yes, thank you, Ellie, and everyone. Very happy to be here. And so I'm going to talk to you about the Baha'i New Year, or Nawruz. So I made a little bit of questions for me to be answering. And so I said, okay, what does Nawruz commemorate or celebrate? So yeah, as we said, it's the new year. Actually, Nawruz means the New Year's first day. It falls on the vernal equinox every year, which in the Northern Hemisphere coincides with the spring equinox. And for us, this is a symbol. The equinox is a symbol of what we call the manifestations of God. So when I say manifestations of God, we mean Krishna, Abraham, Moses, Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, the Bab, Baha'u'llah. who's the founder of the Baha'i faith, among others manifestations. So that's what the equinox symbolizes for us. And it's a symbol of the message that they proclaim, which is like a spiritual springtime. So that's why it falls also in spring. And that's basically what we commemorate in Nawruz. So for us, it's more than a party. It reminds us of the oneness of all the messengers of God and the spiritual springtime that they each brought to humanity. And Abdul Baha, who is the son of the founder of the faith, Baha'u'llah, explains to us that Nawruz represents the return of the Son of reality. So that's when a reawakening of the spirit occurs, which is progressively happening throughout history. And it's the light of a new revelation that shines on the whole creation of God. And we believe there will be another manifestation in 1,000 years. So that's basically what Nawruz for us symbolizes. And so I also asked myself another question, which would be, how would we usually mark this holiday? So Nawruz also marks the end of a 19th-day Baha'i feast. So we fast for 19 days from the 1st of March to the 19th of March in a very similar way as Muslims do. So from sunrise to sunset, we don't drink anything, we don't eat anything. And so Nawruz marks the end, as the last day of the fast. So it brings a very diverse, because the Baha'i community is very diverse from different backgrounds and origins. So a very diverse group of people. We get together, we eat, we celebrate, we have fun, we enjoy each other's company, and we sort of really welcome this new year of many possibilities. And it's a very exciting time for us. So the Baha'i faith celebrates diversity, but at the same time, unity and the oneness of humanity is a fundamental principle, is the fundamental principle for us. So that's why I mentioned diversity, because being such a diverse group of people from different origins and backgrounds, we eat a lot. On that day is a very rich, diverse food. We don't drink alcohol, so we do eat delicious food. And then how did we celebrate this year? So like most holidays, we celebrate the new year with dancing or singing or eating, socializing. But this year, as we know, with all the pandemic restrictions to socialize in person, we held our new year basically via Zoom, as we are doing right now. So I am located in the ultra-remote downtown community in Montreal. However, this year we were able to join different celebrations and festivities around the world. So that's one of the interesting aspects of our current circumstances due to the health crisis, that we were able to go to different celebrations happening at different times in different parts of the world. And I also put another question: what is perhaps the most meaningful aspect of Nawruz? And maybe for me, it is also that it marks the end of the 19-day month of fasting. Our months are for 19 days. So it marks the end of that month of fasting. So it is very meaningful for me because, as we said, we get together and we celebrate the end of that period of restriction. It's a period of purification. It's a period of connection with God. It slows us down. It's a time to reflect, to put things in order in our lives. And then it's the arrival of the spring. It's the arrival of change, of renewal. So for this reason, we use often images of gardens and flowers and spring as a symbol of Nawruz is the new life. And I also thought it would be interesting to maybe make connections with other religions and traditions. And I found that Nawruz is also celebrated by Zoroastrians. And I believe it's also often celebrated in parts of countries where branches of the Shiite Islam can be found. And although there are differences between the Baha'i holiday and the Baha'i holiday of Nawruz and the Persian holiday of Nawruz, the theme of celebrating a new day remains the same, is the same in both. And I believe also the Jewish, and maybe you can correct me, Rabbi, I believe also the Jewish festival of Purim is also said to be related to the Persian New Year. And that Nawruz also is celebrated a lot, like the Christian Easter, with many symbols that relate to spring and renewal. And I just wanted to say that Purim is the Jewish holiday that we say may be connected with the Persian New Year, that commemorates the saving of the Jewish people from Hammam, which was a Persian empire official who was planning to kill the Jews, and as it is told in the book of Esther. So basically it celebrates the saving them from this. So I did not take all my 10 minutes, I believe. I will also need to leave a little bit before the Q&A starts, so I'm very sorry about that. But I don't know if I still have some time, if we can use that time maybe to enable a little conversation, if there's anything that sparked your curiosity, or if I said something that somebody wants to comment on. Otherwise, this is really what I prepared, and then I want to wish everyone a happy Nawruz.
Thank you, Adriana. That's great. You still have 3 minutes and 40 seconds. Way to go. So if people, as Adriana does, have to leave and you're getting one clap, that's fabulous. So Shaheen, you have a question for Adriana. You have your hands up. If you have a question, raise your hand.
Yeah, no, I don't have a question. I just wanted to say thank you. It was very, very enlightening. And I never knew all these connections with Islam, the Baha'i connection with Islam. Thank you so much. That's all.
Great. Rabbi Greenspan has a question. Is one day, oh wait, I lost it. Is it a one-day celebration?
Well, it falls on the spring equinox. It's a one-day celebration, but I guess it is a one day. It's the Baha'i New Year. It's like we celebrate the January 1st, the New Year. So it is a one-day celebration, but it starts actually before the fast with intercalary days that we call Ayamiha, which is 5 days that are kind of, they don't fit in our 19-day months calendar. So we start before the fast celebrating. So it's like the end of a whole process of that. Those 5 days we get together, we give gifts, we visit the elderly, we visit the sick. It's a period of a lot of excitement. Then we have the fast 19 days where we gather in the mornings, maybe at dawn, to say prayers before eating, and then we gather at night and the evening to break the fast, and then the Baha'i New Year. So it's like it's a one day, but it's like the culmination of a whole process.
Lovely. And Glenna, you have your hand up. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Adriana, I was wondering, I think you mentioned something about the Outremont community, but the Baha'i community in Montreal, I've been to the shrine downtown. Are there other shrines, or did you mean you live in Outremont, or the Baha'i community is has different chapters, different congregations?
Yes, well, actually, we don't have clergy. And we actually, most of our activities happen in people's homes because we really focus on creating, building community and creating community bonds, getting to know our neighbors. So a lot of things happen in our homes, but we do have the Montreal Baha'i Shrine, which is actually the only Baha'i shrine in the Western Hemisphere, apart from the Holy Land and the Middle East. So it's very special for Montreal. So that's the one you've probably visited. It's a historic place. Spiritually very meaningful. And we have the Baha'i Center, another center in Côte d'Ivoire, where we have a lot of community activities with a wider community. Okay. Yes, maybe I
thank you. Got it. Yeah. Thank you.
That's great. It's, as always, this raises a lot of questions about the faith as a whole, and that's wonderful. So today is about a particular holy day in Baha'i and in other traditions, but we also have other opportunities to learn more. Our big Discover Multi-Faith Fair is a big event in the fall where you can learn, and hopefully soon we'll offer, when we're back, we'll offer visits to sacred sites. So that's an opportunity. So that's great, Adriana. Thank you so much. Your perfect timing too. So thank you very much, and thanks for your questions. So, and what's a good greeting? Happy Nawruz, or what do a Korean do? Yeah.
Happy Nawruz.
Okay, happy Nawruz. A bit late, but still happy Nawruz to you. So thank you. All right, we'll move on. Our next holy day is Passover, and I'll invite Rabbi Ellen Greenspan, who is the rabbi educator at Temple Emmanuel Beth Shalom, and also one of the Jewish members of our multi-faith network.
Thank you. So I'm happy to be here. I'm happy that some of my congregants decided to join as well. Adriana, thank you. I always learn so much from you. I'm really interested. I think you've heard me say this before, but I would love to. I've been to Israel many times, but I've never been to the Baha'i center in Haifa. So one day I'll get there. So I'm here today. I don't want to take up my time by talking about other things. I'm here to talk about Passover, which we're in the middle of that holiday right now. It started on Saturday night. Yeah, Saturday night. And it lasts for either 7 or 8 days, depending on your location in the world, actually. In Israel and in most liberal diaspora communities, we observe 7 days, but most of the world outside of Israel observes 8 days of a holiday. The main theme of the holiday is freedom, and it celebrates the liberation of the Israelites from Egyptian bondage, and it's described in the book of Exodus. We begin the week-long festival with a Seder, a meal that's preceded by the telling or the retelling of the Passover story using a book called a Haggadah or a Haggadah, if you're pronouncing it correctly in Hebrew. And I have a couple to show you. So the really interesting thing about the Haggadah is that it is the most often reproduced text in all of Jewish tradition. So you can find a Haggadah that expresses whatever theme is important to you. There's a freedom Haggadah, there's a, I don't know, vegetarian Haggadah, there's a Workers' Liberation Party Haggadah. Anyway, so I have a couple to show you. This one was published by the Canadian Jewish community, actually, I'm sorry, this was published by a local synagogue, and it is particularly interesting because it's in 3 languages. It's in French, English, and Hebrew. I have a second one that's also in 3 languages. This one was published, it's a little hard to see. This one has beautiful artwork in it. It was commissioned by the Federation of Jewish Philanthropies here in Montreal to celebrate their 100th anniversary, and they commissioned artists to do artwork. So here's a really beautiful rendition of the parting of the Red Sea. So it's got beautiful artwork in it, and it also has 3 languages in it. This one is one of the most recently published ones. Doesn't have a beautiful cover, but it has beautiful poetry in it. And here's just one more, is one that's geared for families, a Passover family Haggadah. So there are dozens, I would probably say hundreds of different Haggadot, which is the plural, out there. One of my just favorite things to explore. So we use this as the guide to guide our discussions and our conversations and the ritual of the meal. So during this ritual Seder, we use various symbols that help us tell the story and that try to get us to feel a little bit of what our ancestors may have experienced. So we lay out these symbols on a plate, a Seder plate. This happens to be a beautiful one that I was given as a gift in my first congregation when I was quite a young rabbi. And now I'm going to share my screen so I can show you the symbols and tell you a little bit about what they mean. So here we have, can you see it? Oh, I'll do it in present mode so you can see it better. So this is a traditional Seder plate with all of the traditional symbols. So the traditional symbols are a shank bone of some sort that represents the Paschal sacrifice, because the Israelites sacrificed a ram or a lamb on the night before Passover and painted blood on their doorway so the angel of death would pass over the Israelite homes. So we use that as a symbol. And the egg also, the roasted egg, is also a symbol of spring, but also a symbol, it's roasted also to symbolize that Paschal sacrifice. We make a mixture of sweet nuts, cinnamon, a little sweet wine, or it could be grape juice. In Eastern and European tradition, it's made with apples, but in Mediterranean countries, it would be made with figs and bananas and oranges. And anyway, it's a sweet mixture that's meant to represent the mortar of the bricks that the Israelite slaves would have made. This is horseradish, and it could be white, it can be from a jar, or it could be fresh. It represents the bitterness of slavery. The idea is to eat something bitter, to make your eyes tear, so you feel the bitterness of slavery. This is parsley, and and it's a sign of spring because the Jewish calendar is connected to the agricultural seasons. Passover is always in the spring, and so we use this as a symbol of spring, but the Seder plate doesn't have salt water on it, but when we use the Seder, the parsley as part of the ritual, we dip it in salt water, symbolizing the tears, again, the sadness of the slaves, like that it was, that slavery was a challenge. And then there's often a second bitter, either romaine lettuce or cress or something that's bitter, but it has the same symbolism as the horseradish. But today, one of the things that is really interesting about Judaism in general, and specifically about Passover, is that there's a lot of room for creativity. So people are always inventing new traditions and new rituals. So now there are things that we add to our Seder plate. So here are the traditional things that I just pointed out. And today, people add various things to their Seder plate. So we might add an orange, which symbolizes the inclusion of the LGBTQ community. Olives as a symbol of peace. Fair trade chocolate or coffee beans to symbolize that we're advocating for the workers in the world. Sometimes people also put a tomato on their Seder plate to symbolize the poorly paid and poorly treated farm workers. And an artichoke, because that's a new one that I only heard about this year, because you peel back the layers and it represents the diversity of the Jewish community. I have one more slide that's a graphic actually that explains, so it explains all of the, I could even send this to you, Ellie, afterwards. It explains these different symbols, but it also indicates that if you're a vegetarian, you don't want to put a bone on your Seder plate, you could use a roasted beet, or as we did at my Seder, we used a pretend dog bone that the first night my cat helped himself to the bone, the fake bone off the Seder plate, because he knew it was a toy. And the egg for vegans, you can replace it with a flower or a seed, because it represents rebirth. So that is basically all I had to say. I don't think I've used my 10 minutes either, but there's so much I could say. I had to limit what I was going to say. So that is what I have to say. And I'm happy to, of course, take questions, but I don't have to leave so early. I have to leave at 3:30, but I can stay and answer some questions later.
That's lovely, but we have 2 minutes left. I think I scared everybody with the 10 minutes. So there's lots of thank you, rabbis, and love you, Seder plate. But if people have direct questions right now for Ellen, we could ask them. Well, there's some in the chat. Are there? No, just affirmations. We celebrate Passover with our son and his family. Love what you have added to the Seder plate. Very interesting. Thank you. Thank you. So that's lovely.
Only thank yous.
Only thank you. So well done, Ellen.
Yeah,
I just ask?
Seder dinners.
Sorry.
I do miss going to Seder dinners because I used to be invited to my Jewish friends' homes and even the big gatherings at the synagogues.
All right, thanks. And I think, thank you. Lots of us have that opportunity. I was privileged too to be part of it. And so it's a wonderful celebration. Andrew, did I hear you ask a question?
I just thought that there was a great story that you told, Ellen, about one of the young children sort of pointing out the full moon wasn't the night everyone thought it was, or something. Was that? It was such a beautiful story.
So Passover is also connected to this. Well, Passover falls on the full moon. The Jewish calendar is a lunar calendar. So every Jewish month starts at the new moon, and so anyway, Passover starts in the middle of the month. It starts when there's the full moon, and there's this reason for 7 or 8 days of the holiday has to do with the fact that in ancient times they literally watched the moon rise over Jerusalem, and then they would pass the message that the holiday had started. And since the far-flung communities were afraid they hadn't gotten the message in time, they tacked an extra day onto the holiday. So when I was talking to my kids in my Torah school about this, I said, look at the moon on Saturday night, it'll be full. And one of the kids pipes up and says, it's not going to be full until Sunday. It was because they had been learning about the cycles of the moon in school, the phases of the moon. It's really funny. And so I actually looked it up, and it is true that the moon was officially full at 2:50 in the afternoon on Sunday. But that is the first day of Passover. So it still worked for being the full moon on the first day of Passover.
I wonder if there's a little bit of time to ask something.
We actually out of time, but ask a question. Maybe we can answer it either now or later. Let's hear the question.
Okay, and the question is, because I actually have a Jewish friend, and he's in Colombia now, and maybe he was going to be at my mother's, and I was telling her how to do for them to visit, how to do the plate and everything. And I looked up in the internet and I saw similar symbols, but a little bit different from what you presented. Has this changed a little bit from what it was originally, or not really?
No, I mean, if you look up what the traditional Seder plate symbols, they were on my first slide. I can share it's just a Google slideshow. I can share it with everybody. But the traditional symbols haven't changed, but it's the new traditions that are being added.
Right.
And
Cheryl points out maybe Sephardic symbols are different, but I think the only thing that the Sephardic meaning Jews from like Mediterranean countries, from Spain, from Arab speaking countries, they use different fruits in their haroset, in that mixture that symbolizes the mortar. But I don't think any of the other symbols are different in Sephardic traditions, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, living tradition as its best. And sometimes people also use what we have. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Ellen, for a wonderful presentation. And we'll have more questions. And I just want to say kudos to that kid for integrating what they learned in school with Torah school. That's pretty awesome. Great. Okay, I'm going to take you off the spotlight. And our next speaker is Sharon Dworzak. Sharon, here we go. Sharon is the Christian development person at the Church of St. Andrews and St. Paul's, which is just up the street from our office. And she is one of the Christian members of our multi-faith network. And you are celebrating starting last Sunday with Palm Sunday, Holy Week into Easter. So tell us all about it.
Yes, I'm going to try and condense it as much as I can. I'm going to try and screen share. This is new for me, the screen sharing business. So I'm going to try, and it's just a list of Holy Week. Just give me a second. I'll see. Oh, wait a second. No. Okay, I did this wrong. It may not work. So if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter. No. Okay.
Would you like us to offer you some technical help, or do you just leave?
Yeah, if my husband can. It's basically I can live without it anyway. It's a list of the holidays throughout Holy Week. When we recognize Good Friday and Easter Sunday. I think we went to church on Palm Sunday, but there was we didn't do the whole journey, which as grew into adulthood, I began to see the relevance and importance of it. And it starts on Palm Sunday, as you said, and ends right up to Easter morning, when the resurrection of Christ. And you can observe this Holy Week in a couple of forms, actually. The Stations of the Cross at St. Joseph's Oratory offers this. It's actually quite lovely. And you can go through, and it's basically following Christ's journey from his, when he marched into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday through to, and we do it with the children at the church school as well, because I really recognized when I got into the Christian education program that I felt that was something that I wanted to the children of our church to also learn about, and learn about what Jesus went through from Palm Sunday. So we do something called a spiritual walk, and we set up in one of the large rooms in the church a spiritual walk, and each station is sort of explaining, and there's some symbolism involved in the journey of Jesus up to the crucifixion as well as the resurrection. So I'll just go through the main days. Palm Sunday, basically what we do is we have a special service at the church, and the children come in waving their palms, and they sing a song related to Palm Sunday, which is quite nice. So that's their participation in it. And then on Monday, Thursday, we have another service. All the services are online this year because of COVID, so you're welcome to join. And Thursday commemorates the Last Supper and often observed with foot washing. Some churches do that, our church doesn't, but it's a very somber and a very sort of quiet service. Everything is dimmed, it's very dark. Everything is candle lit, but it's a very quiet, there's a lot of readings and it's very somber. Then on Good Friday, this is the most solemn day of a Christian church year. And this was the day that Jesus was crucified. And we have a service, a morning service again for that. And it's a very somber, very, very quiet service commemorating when Jesus was crucified. Then on Saturday, now our church hasn't done it, but some churches, my husband was Ukrainian Catholic, growing up as a Ukrainian Catholic, and they would actually guard the tomb in their church. They would take turns, it would be a rotation, and people would take turns, and they basically guarded the tomb right through. He remembers doing it as a young man. We don't do that in our church, but this is something that I think still is going on, probably in other church communities, Christian communities. Some of you may know of it already. Then finally on Easter Sunday, we try to get our youth involved, and we have a special service called the Sunrise Service. Needless to say, having teenagers involved, it does not happen at sunrise. Before COVID, we managed to get them to the church by 8 a.m. And this service is, they've done a recording. It's going to be part previous services that were recorded. And then we've been recording them. We had a little choir set up and everything's been recorded and will be integrated on Easter Sunday. And then we would have a pancake breakfast and invite the church community. Then at 11 o'clock was another service, which is the communion service. And of course, we have the communion. The wine is symbolic of Christ's blood, and the bread is symbolic of his body. In terms of our traditions, they're Easter bunnies and chocolate eggs really have no part in the story. However, it started with the egg actually, a real egg symbolizes the tomb. And that's how it started. And I did a little bit of research because I wasn't really sure, but what I did find out was that the shell is the tomb, and apparently some would do things with a baby chicken and say this was Jesus. I knew nothing of that. But what they said is, you may have heard of Easter egg rolling. I've never participated in that, and I never really understood what was the idea of Easter egg rolling. Well, apparently it supposedly represents the tombstone rolling away to reveal Jesus' empty tomb. I didn't know this. So when I began to sort of do a little research for myself, because I thought someone might ask about the Easter eggs, I hadn't realized that. So it seemed like a more significant activity to me. But what I read was the custom of because now when I was growing up, my parents would hide Easter eggs, and they were chocolate Easter eggs, I have to admit. And we would have to search and find the Easter eggs. But the custom of the Easter egg hunt comes from Germany, and some suggest that its origins date back to the late 16th century when the Protestant reformer Martin Luther organized egg hunts for his congregation. This part I really like. The men would hide the eggs for the women and children to find. This was a nod to the story of the resurrection in which the empty tomb was discovered by women. That I didn't know. So thank you for inviting me to do this, because I've learned. In my husband's tradition, I actually brought one to show you. His mom used to make, this one is not an actual egg, it's wooden. But the Ukrainians would decorate these beautiful Easter eggs. And the symbols are all to do with the resurrection of Christ. And they're really quite lovely. And his mom used to do it. And then they would have the Easter eggs blessed at the church on Easter Sunday. And I have a little note that on some of them, there's a cross, obviously, there's fish, and then there's the Trinity. And the colors are interesting. White is for purity, orange is ambition, red is hope. It's French, so I'm trying to translate it. And blue is for good health, and then confidence, and black is in memory. Anyway, it's all very symbolic, but when they did it, it was all related to, not to just be a pretty egg, but to be related to the crucifixion. As far as, I'm just jumping around now, another interesting note on Good Friday is that many Christians only eat fish on Good Friday. Actually, some of them don't eat fish, don't eat meat at all any Friday. And this was to symbolize that Jesus sacrificed his flesh for our sins. So by abstaining, they abstained from consumption of blood. So that's a tradition that I know of some that we did it when I was growing up. We had fish on Friday, and that was part of our tradition. And then the meal on Sunday, Easter Sunday, is usually, it can be many different things, but we usually have lamb. Because we look at Jesus as the Lamb of God. But I think that's about, I've maybe rushed over things too quickly because I was afraid that I would miss out. Does anybody have any questions on, I just want to say too, that all the services we do are on YouTube if you want to look them up, including the one, there's two on Sunday. One is by the children, and the other one at 11 is our church service itself. But that's about, I sort of run over. I probably missed out a lot of things because I was afraid I was going to go over.
I know it's hard to explain so much in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Sophia, you have a question. You need to unmute yourself, please.
Thank you, Sharon. My question is, it goes back quite a few years, but I used to live in Mile End where down St. Peter was a big church. And I remember a very elaborate parade that happened during springtime. Is that related to Easter in any way? And what does it involve? I know it was very solemn and people were bowing in the street and it was quite large.
There is, I don't know if they still do it, but they used to walk carrying a cross, and it probably was in that area. I was never part of it, but yes, that was it. That was for the crucifixion of Jesus. Do you know anything about that, Ellie?
I don't know about that in particular. I know there are a lot of places imitate the Stations of the Cross. There's also a little bit like sort of bringing it in today's time, like sometimes people go to today's places of suffering. So Good Friday is really the most somber day. It's like a funeral, and the funeral of the most beloved person in Christianity. And so often they would stop and have prayers at different spaces. And sometimes it's like, now I know places where you've gone to the Black community to commemorate the suffering of that racism inflicts, or things like that. So I don't know if that's the one. There's also another celebration in June, Corpus Christi, that a Catholic community, it's not very well known, but where they also have a procession. But I would need to know more about that particular one, but it's very possible it was the walk, the Stations of the Cross. Yes,
I know there's they go quite a distance, if I'm not mistaken, and they do carry. And the idea of Holy Week is to recognize and remember the suffering of Christ, and then remembering these specific days, the specific period of the week. But basically, it's to remember and appreciate, and the idea of the no meat on Friday, and then finally we have our the communion service on Sunday. But it's to sort of try to follow and remember what his week was. He was a living person, and so to remember what he endured and what he suffered for us as Christians. So it's a means of remembrance, it's a means of respect, it's a means of thanksgiving. And so that's why, and some people really the ones that do that walk, that's not an easy walk. They really are physically doing something that is not an easy thing to do. And then other people have other traditions that are related to food, related to going to church. I mean, it's like, I guess, most religions, the big holidays, the church is packed.
Okay, Sharon, I'm going to pause you here because we're out of your time.
Okay.
Ashrika, you mentioned that procession is done in India too. And the walk, the Station of the Cross in Jerusalem, you see that a lot. Yeah, so thank you so much. Again, it's so hard to put all that and also the emotion and the hardship and then the joy in Easter. So thank you for sharing that. We'll have a larger conversation afterwards. So our next holy day or holy period is Ramadan. So Ramadan is not necessarily a spring celebration because the Muslim holy days move around the calendar year. But this year we are, I don't know if we're lucky or if it just is. Here we are this year. Ramadan starts on April 13th, and we're very fortunate to have Shaheen Junaid here, who is a member of the Canadian misnomer. Canadian Council of Muslim Women. Got it. And also one of the Muslim members of our multi-faith network. So take it away, Shaheen.
Thank you, Ellie, for allowing me to be a part of MFSC and asking me to share some thoughts about a holy day as we celebrate many religious, or you might call them traditional events happening within these past, present, and future 2-week span. I feel someone up there is trying to send a message. And although these messages have been there all the time, we never paid attention to them. I feel now is the time seriously to do it. Spring equinox, Nawruz, Passover, Holi, Hola Mohalla, middle of Shaban, for the full moon that was, Easter, Ramadan, all these events falling are almost around the same time, are all telling us that we are one. I'm sure everyone agrees with me on this thought. Today, I shall speak about the month of fasting, which is not the holiday, as that comes after this month of struggle. A German professor once wrote, fasting is an effective means to establish control of the spirit over the body, where man lives with a full control over himself without being a slave to his physical inclinations or needs. This month actually brings our dual nature into focus. It provides us with the time to practice our spirituality for ourselves and be of service to others. We are given a chance to train ourselves to overcome our worldly desires and work towards enhancing our qualities that are more akin to those of the divine. It is not an easy task, but worth the effort. Human nature, in all its frailties and weaknesses, has a chance to overcome those difficulties and choose a path to lead a good life of harmony and coexistence with everything and everyone around us. We will hopefully see some improvements in our nature, our spiritual well-being, after this month is over, and we should continue this practice of being good to others and conquering our carnal desires to bring out our spirituality. The word Ramadan itself means heat or fire, as the month always used to come during the days of summer. When the calendar changed from the solar calendar to the lunar calendar, and we started following the cycle of the moon, it comes in every season now. So we witness the moon and we start fasting and then finish it at the end of the cycle and celebrate after the new moon. Different cultures, because Islam is very diverse, it's all over the world, like of course other religions too. I heard Adriana talk about the Baha'i differences also, like the diversity. So different cultures celebrate this holy month in their own geographically diverse traditions. Some put up lights, some decorate their homes, some stay up the whole night by having poetry sessions or traditional readings and things like that. The principles of fasting are set in the Quran as follows. O ye who believe, fasting is prescribed unto you as it was prescribed to those before you, that ye may learn self-restraint. And that's from chapter 2, verse 183. God explains that fasting is not a new phenomena among the holy laws given to man. It was ordained to previous peoples as well. The purpose being to teach us self-restraint, sympathize with the hungry who cannot eat at will due to their poverty, develop our willpower, as I quoted the German professor earlier. And these are the things that fasting teaches us. The month of Ramadan is also a month in which the holy book, Quran, started being revealed. And it was revealed over a period of 23 long years. As prescribed in the Quran, fasting is abstaining from food and drink and all worldly distractions and desires from dawn to dusk. Although restraining yourself from food, drink, anger, irritability, using bad language, etc., 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 sounds tough, it is a joyful time. It is a time to be grateful. It is a time for sharing, caring for others, feeding the less fortunate. Some young people even volunteer at shelters to feed the hungry while they are hungry themselves. You know, there are many instances where the Prophet encouraged everyone to do goodness towards others by saying that everything you do in this month while fasting will be rewarded 10 times over. So this was what motivates, drives, and gives people the energy to fast and do good deeds towards others in this holy month. The breaking of the fast at sundown is a celebration. Different cultures have their different traditional foods. Like in Pakistan, where I come from, we would serve snacks like samosas, pakoras, yogurt, dumplings in yogurt-based dishes, these kind of things. We do follow the Prophet's tradition of breaking the fast with a date, or sometimes he used to break the fast with some salt or just water. So food differs geographically, but the theme of doing good towards others is the same everywhere. There is an extra nighttime prayer added to the 5 daily prayers in this month, which of course is optional. It's, you know what they call, there's a word for it, supererogatory, you know, like it's extra prayers. But people do try and accomplish those too, as they say that prayer cleanses the soul. It is also a time when the community comes together, of course, under normal circumstances. I mean, this is going to be the second year where we are isolated from the community, family, friends, gatherings at the breaking of the fast, you know, which is a huge component of Ramadan. Let us hope that next Ramadan we shall be able to do that. Happy spirituality, everyone, for all the events. Holidays come and go, but we go on about our lives in this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Shaheen. You have 3 minutes left. Way to go. Maybe I was too much of a taskmaster, but thank you for summarizing that and really sharing the depth and the breadth of Ramadan, because I think as an outsider, as somebody who's not Muslim, I only think of the fasting and how hard it would be. So it's really great to give a sense of the whole month. So if we can take a few questions right now for, again, lots of thank yous, but a couple, if we have any direct questions right now, Shaheen, if anyone has one, please put up your hand. No, you explained everything so well. Way to go. Ashika, yes.
Hey, thank you, Shaheen. You managed to cover quite a lot. I just thought you could maybe also highlight Laylatul Qadr, the holy night that falls between in this month, where actually a lot of Muslims they stay up the entire night. It falls on one of the odd nights of the month. So that's when people maximize their charity and also increase their spirituality during that period. So
Yeah, I
if you
think
want
I did mention that because the Prophet said that to motivate us, he said that anything that you do while fasting, you get the reward 10 times. So people, this is the reason why people do so many good things during this month. Yeah.
Lovely. That's you have many holy days and lots of encouragement to give and be generous. That's lovely. Thank you. So,
I have a question,
yeah,
maybe.
someone else had a question.
Yes, I remember a few years I had, I spent some time with Muslim friends in the summer, and they were fasting in the summer. So I don't know if you mentioned it and I missed it, but it seems to change the date in the year. It changes every year, because I remember that at that time they were fasting in August.
Yeah, so every year it falls like 10 days earlier because the cycle of the moon, because you follow the cycle of the moon, the new moon is like sometimes it's 29 days, sometimes it's 30 days. So this is why, and the solar calendar is 30 and 31 days. So every year we come up like 10 days.
So it was harder. It was harder task in the summer, longer days.
Yeah. So Cheryl has her hand up.
Hi. I just have my question is about fasting and age. So for the Jewish religion, usually we have our fasting day for Yom Kippur, and it's usually after bar mitzvah, I think, age where they should be fasting full the whole day. I work in an elementary school with a lot of Muslim kids, and some of them come hungry and they're really young.
Yeah. So yes, you're not supposed to fast when you're young. God does not want you to be be discouraged from fasting. Fasting is for your own soul, for yourself. But the thing is that, and if you're old or if you're sick, that's the part I forgot to mention. If you're old, if you're sick, if you're traveling, you can always, if you're pregnant, like all these things, when you cannot fast, you cannot fast. So you defer it to another time to complete it, or you give compensation, like you feed a person, instead of you help somebody break their fast. Yeah, so that's the thing.
So beautiful.
Lovely. Ashika says, I love how you explained Ramadan is beyond refraining from food. That's correct. Yeah, thanks. So thank you, Shaheen. Thank you very much for this lovely presentation. And thank you to all of our presenters. I've learned a lot. Yes, we have some claps. That's awesome. So we were going to have another, hands, thumbs up, claps, whatever. It's wonderful. So we were going to hear also about the psyche, but unfortunately our presenter isn't here. But we will continue. I also just want to acknowledge that there are many other holy days at this time of year, and we are not honoring all of them. I didn't want to put any more presenters in and give you even less time, but just to acknowledge that. And as we move into the discussion part, if you celebrate another tradition, I know Ostara is a pagan holiday. There are others coming up. So if you want to share a bit about that, you're more than welcome to. So it's not exclusive of these traditions we just heard about, but so feel free to add in. And also if you have, some people have personal rituals. But springtime, more so than fall even, has really is a convergence of holy days. And in the Northern Hemisphere, certainly, I think that the whole notion of new life and renewal is, I certainly needed after a winter. So Ellen, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I wanted to say two things, really to comment on something that Shaheen said, that we didn't really acknowledge the fact that this is the second year that we're all celebrating these holidays under the constraints of COVID. And it's really, a friend of mine, I was on a Zoom earlier today with a colleague, and she said that, I don't even remember my synagogue Seder from last year. Like, she said, I had to ask them, did I send you stuff? Did we even have a Seder? She said, she was so shell-shocked. She didn't even remember. So I do feel like, even though it's really sad and horrible that we're doing this for the second year. I do feel like we're doing it better this year, that we're better able to share our traditions and to make the celebrations meaningful, even though we're not able to gather in person. The other thing, unrelated, I wanted to just mention something Shaheen said about the Muslim calendar being lunar versus solar. If you want me to, I can explain that a little more. So the Jewish calendar is also a lunar calendar, but we have a leap year system built in, which the Muslim calendar doesn't. So the Jewish calendar also, all of our months are 29 or 30 days, but every few years we add a leap year. We actually add a leap month. We add a whole month. So if any of you who are familiar at all with the cycle of the Jewish holidays, our holidays also creep back and back and back a few days each year. But then there's a leap year and they adjust back. So this coming fall, the high holidays are as early in September as they can possibly be. Rosh Hashanah, I think, is September 7th or something. And then there will be a leap year and they'll move a month later and then they'll creep back again. So that's, and the Muslim calendar doesn't have that leap year built in. Although I didn't know that it was a change. You said there used to be some adjustment for that. I didn't know that, so.
No, not adjustment. We used to follow the solar calendar.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, you set up on a great discussion. That's exactly what we want to do. So this is a chance to ask questions, feed in your own perspective, be curious. So the process is quite simple. If you have a question, you can either raise your Zoom hand. So if you go somewhere on your screen, there should be reactions. That's where you clap or send love or throw party balloons or whatever. And you can also raise your hand. Or you can, if you find that too hard, you can actually raise your physical hand and I will acknowledge you. Or if there's a lull, you can also just speak. But we want to give everyone a sort of chance to ask their questions and make their comments. And I guess I also want to add a word about COVID. It is the second year and we're starting the second cycle. I know last year the Passover was the first holy day in COVID and I thought, oh my goodness. And then all of a sudden it dawned on me that we would have Easter. As a Christian, we would have Easter on Zoom, and never did I think we would do it for a second round. And here we are. But I think it's important to remember what the core of those traditions is, and then and how we celebrate them is different when we're in person than on Zoom or So and if there's a silver lining, it actually causes us to reflect on what the core of those days are and what the core of our tradition is. So I want to open it to you. If you have a question or a comment, something you learned, something that surprised you. Sophia.
Thank you. It really gave me insight, and also I like to know about everybody's background and what are the traditions. So they were really well presented. When we mentioned food, and I just want to backtrack a bit. In terms of Zoom, I do find it easier this year because, first of all, hopefully it's the last one. So, it took a while before it became the new normal for me. It's to see a bunch of faces right at then I'm shy in the first place. So, was a little overwhelming at the beginning. But now I'm getting used to it and I like it better because I know maybe it's coming to an end. It'll just be sometimes. We mentioned food, but I see for example, we have beautiful flowers in the background. We have in our tradition to give flowers on Shabbat and to give flowers at Passover. And I was wondering in Muslim and in Islamic and Christian traditions, I know that lilies are very popular. And what is your tradition regarding flowers before they start blooming in the garden?
Are you asking me?
Yes, I'm asking everyone who is speaking.
There is no such tradition. Islam is very geographic. It's where you are locally. It's not that if in Canada it's the custom to give flowers, we will bring flowers. Okay. But if you're back in Pakistan, we bring some food dish or something like that, you know. So it all depends where you are. It depends on the local customs. It's not, there's no religiosity attached to it.
Thank you.
Sharon, did you also want to add something about flowers? Where are you on my
Yes,
screen?
actually, what I was also going to say, there are so many similarities when I'm listening to everyone, and the gathering of friends and family is so important, and that's what we're missing this year. And thank goodness for Zoom, and also like the time-honored traditions, which I think are wonderful and so important, and it's incredible how these have carried on. Prayer. And the flowers, you've just brought up flowers. And yes, we deliver flowers to shut-ins, actually, lilies, and that is the flower that's symbolic of Easter. And my son converted to Judaism, and we actually delivered flowers to him this weekend for Passover. So I just really enjoy the similarities. And I loved what Shaheen shared with us. And your words are so inspirational that we really are not that different. We really are the same, and really to be caring for each other. And I think that has come through in what everybody said today. And that's, I think, just so vital.
Thanks, Sharon. Sophia, you have your hand up again.
No, I just noticed that it's still up.
Oh, okay. Okay. Any others? I also, if you know, we have questions for the presenters, but we can also reflect on what are any of our holy days we celebrate. It might be a mix, or it might just be, personally, for me, the spring equinox, that it's related to Nawruz, of course, but it's really a powerful day because for the first time, the days are longer than the nights. And it's sort of like, we're through the long winter months. Okay, I've made it this far. I can make it further on. And it's not a religious holidays, but the cycle of nature is deeply spiritual to me. So I always acknowledge that day. And so if there might be other holy days or special days for you in spring, and feel free to share that with us. And then the other question, a lot of those that I want to put out there is a lot of those holy days and celebrations, or some of them are commemorations, some of them are more reflective in nature, are about hope and about life in community, helping others, supporting one another, getting through together in a way, getting through COVID, walking the journey of life together. And so I'd like to invite you too to offer any reflections on any of those themes. And welcome, Mary, you joined us. That's wonderful.
Yes, happy to be here. Thank you. I just wanted to mention, like you mentioned, what other holidays we observe as a Christian. One that's important in my family, it's a tradition, it's St. Joseph's Day, which was March 19th. So we celebrate that with special food, and there's particular sweets that my mom usually makes, which I haven't inherited yet. I haven't taken that over yet because it's like challenging to make them, and I'm a horrible baker, but that's always like a really special day. And there's a lot of people in my family, including my son, who has Joseph as a middle name. So it's a really special day. So that's something that we do. And it's
Lovely.
usually close to Easter as well. So we celebrate with great food and sweets, and of course flowers. Lilies are just starting to bloom at that time. So we integrate lilies into that whole celebration.
Lovely.
Mm-hmm.
Zeppoli, Andrew tells us it's called.
Exactly, they're
There you
called
go.
Zeppoli. That's it. They're delicious.
Do you share the recipe or a place where we can buy them? And,
yeah, there's a great place in Verdun called Bossa, B-O-S-S-A. They make, in my mind, the best ones. They're amazing.
Okay, now we're moving on to Alati Caserta.
Oh, Alati as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. And Rabbi Greenspan says, I didn't know they commemorated a saint. Now we know. That's fantastic. Okay, Asfar, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. So I would just like to add with Mary, because what she just said, it reminded of my childhood memories or current memories. So I follow Islam and I was born and brought up in Bangladesh, but I was educated in a missionary school, and my school's name was St. Joseph. So it's one of the prominent school in the country. And our school's foundation day is on 19 March. So I actually did not know why it's 19 March, but now from Mary I came to know that it's actually a special occasion, and the school also founded on the same day. So every year we celebrate the school's birthday on 19 March, and now I know that it also has some religious significance. So great to know that, and it really feels good. Thanks, Mary, and thanks to all. Lovely to know all this tradition.
Actually, another that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. But a really interesting piece of information, like the food that we eat on St. Joseph's Day, one of the primary dishes is like pasta with breadcrumbs, which are really cooked in a special way. And I asked my mom, I'm like, why do we eat like pasta with breadcrumbs, which by the way sounds horrible, but it's really delicious. And she said, because it represents, I think, what did she tell me? She said, Jesus was worked as a carpenter, and it represents the sawdust of carpentry. So they make, to commemorate that, to honor that, to honor him, they make pasta with breadcrumbs.
I love it when we learn random facts. That's something I might never need to know, and yet it's such a great conversation piece.
And all these years, I never asked my mom, and I'm like, I don't understand what, it's delicious, but why do you make this? And she, on St. Joseph's, and we only have it on St. Joseph's Day. And she told me, she says, this is why.
Project for the future, an interfaith cookbook. I think that'd be really awesome, with a bit of
That would be
explanation,
awesome.
a
Yeah.
little bit of explanation about why we eat that and
Yeah.
so on. So Glenna, I see your hand is up as well.
Yeah, thank you. You invited us to comment on a few themes, and one of the themes you mentioned was getting through the holiday together. And that prompted me to think of, particularly this year, it's the second year, but how wonderful, because during this year, we've been reminded of our common humanity with absolutely everyone else in the world. And as has already been said, we have a lot in common, and for the various traditions and religious practices that we've just heard of, they all, yes, there's a similarity, but on several levels, not only as a community or a tradition, but personally as well as universally, right? It sounds like each one of them is an individual faith, be it Catholic, Muslim, Baha'i. I know Baha'i is slightly different. I don't know if it's called a faith, but and Judaism, of course, but that it's both particular to that faith, but also universal. Everything that we've heard, and it all rejoins as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's what.
Mm-hmm. I see some nods too. It's very true that even if it's not my tradition, I can learn so much from it, and causes me to reflect. I might see similarities of how my tradition thinks on the theme of liberation, or or how my tradition reflects on fasting, and so that's one of the gifts of the interfaith word, I think.
Oh, for sure. And as you say, liberation, personal liberation, as well as community or whatever else is going on, and certainly globally, we have a lot we want to be liberated from. And but as we're often told by other practices, it starts with oneself, right? And to be what you want to see spread further. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Ashika, your hand is up, and I don't even know if I'm saying your name correctly. How do you say it?
Ashika is good. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So since you're discussing multiple faiths and their spring celebration, so my mother-in-law, she's Hindu, so my husband's mother. So they celebrate Holi, and so Holi is like done huge in India and also abroad. So it's a very fun festival. So everybody takes part in it. It's not very religious, but more of like different communities come together and throw colors on each other. So it's a lot of fun. I think they celebrate it to commemorate the love between Krishna and Radha, their deities. So, and they also celebrate that full moon day that falls during the spring season. So it's very, very interesting. Shaheen also mentioned it. So I thought if you guys get a chance to celebrate Holi maybe next year after COVID, it's super fun.
Thanks, Achika. That's great. I know that we're intrigued by the colors and their holy runs where you just run and end up completely colored. And I think a few years ago, a group from our center went to a temple for Holi, and the pictures they brought back were amazing, and the stories. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. That's lovely. Mm-hmm. Sophia, is your hand still up or again?
No, that's again. I put it down before. Thank you. We were talking about food before and reaching out to the community. I just wanted to share that our temple has caring cooks. So any congregant that wants to send any card, a greeting card for Passover to someone, it goes to the caring cooks who help people in the community. Rabbi, are there specific groups in Montreal that they reach out to?
Yes, so Caring Cooks is an organization within Temple, all volunteers who, before COVID, they were cooking in person in our kitchen every other week, and the food would be donated to Share the Warmth. It's an organization in Point St. Charles that runs a soup kitchen and it's a community center. Once COVID hit and they couldn't gather, the members of this committee were cooking in their homes, and they were initially donating the food to Resilience, which is feeding the homeless population in Cabot Square. And now that when Share the Warmth reopened, I don't know, a few months ago, they went back to cooking for them, but in their own kitchens instead of at Temple. And I had raised my hand to talk about something else. So if you're ready to go on to another topic.
Go for it.
I mean, you and I were chatting about this last night. I think that it's interesting that we did not talk about the holidays that follow this sort of spate of holidays, but Passover is the beginning of a season of observance, if you will. And we count the days from the first day of Passover. We count 50 days to the next holiday, which in Jewish tradition is called Shavuot. And according to tradition, the Israelites received the 10 Commandments 50 days after leaving Egypt. So that's when we have another holiday that commemorates the giving of the Torah. It's a little fuzzy whether it's the giving of the 10 Commandments or the giving of the whole Torah. That part's a little fuzzy. And I understand that Pentecost is also 50 days after Easter. So I find that really interesting that the number 50 plays into Christian traditions as well. So I'm curious if there's 50 plays a role in Muslim tradition.
Not that I know of. No.
We were chatting about something completely unrelated and ended up there. It was a great conversation. And so, yes, I mentioned that Easter is actually a season. So we celebrate Easter Sunday, and in some countries, it's actually a 2-day holiday. Christmas Day and Christmas Day, Easter Sunday and Easter Monday, just like actually Christmas Day and Boxing Day are also the two high Christian holidays, are actually two religious days. Not just Boxing Day after Christmas, but that's more about commercialism. But Easter starts with Easter Sunday and then goes on for 50 days. It's a season of Easter, leading us to Pentecost. So Sharon, I don't want to take over from you. If you want to explain Pentecost a bit more, but I also don't want to put you on the spot. No, okay. So Pentecost is then culminates with there's different ways of describing it, but it's when the disciples were blessed with the Holy Spirit. And up to then, we believe they were really scared. Christ had risen, but it's like they're still afraid. And that's when the Spirit came upon them and they went out. And it's sort of the beginning of the spreading of the gospel, where they went from beyond Jerusalem and beyond Judea into all the world. One could also argue that this is the beginning of proselytization, I can't even say it, of spreading forcefully, but it is when the gospel really went beyond a particular part of the world. And sometimes it's called the birthday of the church. Some of the art is really awesome because the Holy Spirit is depicted as little flames. So there's tons of artwork with people, mainly men with little fires on their heads. And what's also important, I think, we've come in the Christian church to the recognition that we've often talked about it's the beginning of the Holy Spirit as if it had never been there. And that really discredits particularly Judaism, because God's Spirit has always been there. And so we really try to be careful to say it came to the church and started this new religious movement. So yeah.
And do you do anything to mark the days between Easter and Pentecost?
No, it's just so in the Christian church too, every Sunday is actually Little Easter. So we celebrate the resurrection every Sunday. The 10 days before Pentecost is Ascension, where the story is that Jesus went to heaven. The literal story is it's on a cloud. He rose to heaven, but he was no longer in this life and went to be with God. But there's nothing really, not that I can think of, Sharon.
No, it's just it's taught. It's part of the sort of our liturgical calendar, but there aren't any holidays as such that are celebrated beyond that. I wanted to share something when I'm thinking about how we learn so much from each other. I just finished. We have book study groups at our church, and we just finished doing today a book and it's written by a Jewish woman, Amy Jill Levine, and it's entering the Passion of Jesus, and it's a beginner's guide in Holy Week. Well, I learned more from this Amy Jill Levine that I didn't know before, but it's really she's done a few. We did another one over Advent, but she's amazing, and so I recommend it if anybody's interested. Whatever your religion is, it's just from her perspective, but we learned a lot. Everyone in the group sort of, it got us thinking and sort of questioning also, and great discussion. But yeah, so it was a Jewish lady writing about Holy Week. Yeah.
She's a Jewish woman and a professor of New Testament, which I've always find very fascinating. Ellen,
she's amazing.
You say,
She's amazing because we had a question for her. So someone said, oh, maybe we can email her. And one of our group emailed her and she replied within 10 minutes.
Wow.
She's approachable. Yeah, no, she's amazing.
Well, you must have heard about Professor Reza Aslan. He wrote about Jesus too. Yeah.
And Ellen, you say you have a ritual of counting the days from Passover to Shavuot.
Yeah, I mean, we just make a ritual out of it. Like each night at sundown or sometime in the evening, you say, this is the whatever number day it is of the counting of the Omer. And Omer is a sheaf of barley because Passover was in agricultural society, well, in the Middle East, I guess, where they grew barley, it was the beginning of the barley harvest. And so they would bring in the barley over the course of that 50 days. And so that's where I put a link in to a little article, but that's what the Omer is, what we're counting, but it is a method of keeping track of the days between Passover and this holiday of Shavuot.
Lovely, thank you. Okay. Any other thoughts or questions? And if we're done, that's great too. I just wanted to, I know some of you have to leave soon too, so, but also don't want to cut the conversation short or the learning. Okay.
It was a wonderful afternoon. I learned a lot. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you,
Yes,
Ed.
thanks everyone for
Thank
taking
you.
the time. It's
That's
really
great.
appreciated. So nice.
Thank you,
It's great to learn about different traditions.
Ellie, will you do something like this even when we go back on campus? I think it would be amazing, quite honestly. And even you could do a hybrid. People could come in person, but also join on Zoom. Sometimes it might be easier if you're in your office, you have half an hour, you could join in. I think it would be really wonderful to continue this.
Well, first of all, I want to say we have been recording this. I said I would not record the questions, but we kind of moved into them. So I am recording them, and I do want to share them because I think there is such a rich learning in that. So thank you all for that and for participating and for bringing your curiosity, and hopefully we will inspire others to ask and learn as well.